There's no question that the computing world is moving to a cloud-based environment. When it comes to business, most medium to large companies have some sort of data center or cloud subscription. Let's look into those reasons why you should host your own servers or maybe pay a cloud provider such as Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services. When trying to decide where to host your information, the biggest and most important question to ask is, what are you trying to host? Is it going to be a simple file share? Is it going to be a small Exchange server with 10 or so email addresses? Is it going to be virtual machines? These questions are very important to consider and can determine what the best solution will be. Let's talk over several scenarios and see what considerations should be taken into account. Number one, you want a shared folder for information to be passed around between your employees. Should you put this in the cloud or should you keep it on site? The answer, it really depends on what type of data that will be stored. In general, my answer would be to host it on site. Upload and download speeds from internet providers are notoriously low compared to local network speeds, so trying to transfer data over a 10 megabit WAN connection is not ideal. It would be much better to utilize a gigabit or even 10 gig LAN connection to maximize the data transfer rate. A password-protected shared folder can easily be set up on a regular Windows 7, 8, or 10 computer, or Linux if you're a masochist, without much of an issue. You can build your own computer for under $500 that will do nothing but host a shared folder. Something to note though, this all changes if you are storing what is called personally identifiable information, or PII for short. This includes credit cards, social security numbers, bank account info, and medical records. Most small businesses aren't going to be doing this, but it is a possibility, so it's something you need to keep in mind. In that scenario, I would recommend hiring somebody to manage it for you. If you decide to do it yourself, it's better to pay for cloud hosting for the added security and redundancy, just to make sure your internet bandwidth can handle the data transfers. So scenario number two, you want to virtualize your computers, assuming you have roughly 40 or less office computers. The answer would be on-site. If you have 40 or less computers to virtualize, I will assume that you have money, but not a huge amount like a large company might. While I think that overall it's better to virtualize in the cloud, that also means you'll have to fork out extra money for reliable and fast internet connections, which could be upwards of $600 per month for dedicated fiber, as well as a subscription cost for the cloud services. If you don't spend the extra money for reliable and redundant internet, then your entire business could be dead in the water in the event of an internet outage. With an on-site system though, you will pay more upfront for the necessary server and networking, but it will pay off in the long run when you don't have to worry about expensive dedicated fiber lines or cloud service subscriptions. If the internet goes down, you can keep chugging away on your computers without interruption. You just obviously can't visit the internet, but you'll still be able to connect to your computers. Scenario number three, media editing between employees. This one's not really even a competition. I would say on-site all day long. Cloud services are great for many different scenarios, large and small, but media editing and storage is not one. The price to performance ratio is much worse for cloud services than local services. Because of the large files and computing power required, it will be much more advantageous to have a local server that does your storage, rendering, and file transfers. Scenario number four, Exchange email hosting. I've dealt with this scenario before. I had to get an email account for over 100 employees of a company as cheap as possible. I toyed with the idea of building a server, buying an Exchange license, and then hosting it myself. I also looked at the cost of paying for Office 365 Exchange Online, as well as just getting an Azure VM and sticking Exchange on it. The conclusion that I came to was that I should just pay for Exchange through Office 365. When calculating the cost of an Exchange license plus CALs for all the users, plus the cost of the server, plus the headache of maintaining it, I slowly began to realize that while $4 a month per person sounds pretty high, it really isn't that bad considering how much I actually get for $4. I don't have to spend my time managing an Exchange server. I don't have to spend my money to buy the appropriate licenses and server hardware. I don't have to worry about internet bandwidth to support my local server. I also don't have to worry about the data being permanently lost in the event of a fire or a disaster or a theft or something like that. A case can even be made for using Office 365 Exchange Online in a large organization too, like a Fortune 500 company. Some do, some don't. Some host their own, some pay other companies to do it. It really comes down to, is it worth paying all the extra expenses associated with hosting an Exchange server, or is it better to cut the costs and just go with a stable, easy solution where Microsoft will host it or another company will host it? If you're interested in this service or any others for your business, visit our website at cobaltridge.com to see what we can do for you.